To get started on using text animators, we're going to create a new composition from scratch. So once you launch After Effects, let's choose Create New Composition. Let's call this new composition Falling Text with the preset size of HDV TV 1280 by 720 at 29.9 frames per second. We're going to set the duration of this to be 5 seconds long, and we can keep the background as just a solid black for now, and we'll say OK. We can grab our Type tool, click once in the center of your frame, and simply type the word Descent in the center. Now you can choose whatever type or font that you want it to be, but if you want to follow along with the book, and if you have this installed on your computer, the book is using Avenir, A-V-E-N-I-E-R, Light as its size, and we're going to set the size of it to be 150 pixels tall. Finally, if it's not done so already, you can scroll down to your paragraph panel and make sure it's centered. Also, to make sure it's centered completely inside of your frame, you can open up your Align panel and choose Align the layers to the composition and align it both horizontally and vertically to the center of your entire composition. Now for this animation, we're going to be animating each individual character within this text frame. So going down to our Layers panel, let's twirl open the Descent Layer options and then the Text options. And inside of this text options, you can see the word animate with a little circle and an arrow. When you click on this arrow, this allows you to add more properties to your animation timeline. In our case, we're going to choose the position. When you choose to add a position animation animator range, another set of properties for animator 1 will open up, and you can see the range selection for the position has now been added to your timeline. Now, just like the traditional transform panel, in this position for the range selector, we're going to adjust its X location, which is the second set of zeros, by setting it all the way up to 300. When you do this, this is going to move your words downward. Now, what makes this unique is that we can open up the range selector and we can tell where we want this to start. Now, or also end. Now, by default, this moved the entire word. But under the range selector, if we scrub through this end value, keeping it not at 100%, but all the way down to 0, you can see how it's going to start to move individual letters. 0 represents the starting, and 100% represents the end of that line. So let's scrub our end value all the way down to 0%. We can then click the end stopwatch, and that will add a starting position for this. We can then move our playhead to 4 seconds, and we can set our end value. Whoops, excuse me, let me zoom back out. There. We can then set our end value all the way up to 100%, and that will bring everything down. Now when we go to scrub back and play, you can see this is going to lower our letters one at a time. Let's add a few more properties. We'll bring our playhead all the way back to the beginning position. Going back down to our animator, let's add another property for rotation. When we do this, this is going to add rotation at the bottom of our area, and we can set the rotation value to be 90 degrees. Now when it plays through, it will rotate as it falls down as well. If we want each letter to disappear as it falls and rotates, let's put our playhead back to the starting position, go back down to your animator, and let's add a property of opacity at the very bottom and set the opacity down to 0%. Now as it plays through, you can see not only is it moving, but it's also losing its opacity as it falls. When we did this, notice that we didn't have to add keyframes for each of these properties. The only thing we added a keyframe to was its ending value, and it's going to start at 0, and then as it plays through to the 4 seconds, it'll go all the way up to 100%. The final thing we can add to this is a bit of a blur. So to do that, one more time, let's return to our animator property. Let's add a property of blur to it, which is at the very bottom. And we can set its value to be 100%. Right about there. Now as it falls, you can see it's going out of focus as well. With this done, we can twirl closed the descent layer, and let's add a background to make this a little bit more dynamic. To do this, we've deselected everything, so the layer is not selected, and let's go to the Effects and Presets and open up the Animation Presets panel. From here, we can choose Backgrounds, and we want to open up the Smoke Rising preset. Double-clicking on it will automatically add a solid layer to your layers timeline. You can see in the Controls panel that there's a lot of different settings for this you can play around with. The main thing we want to change to is for the fractal type being just the threads. Oh, there it is. And we want to twirl open the Transform panel and set the scale width to be 300. This will have it look like this, and when we press play, it gives it kind of a shimmery, almost a waterfall type feel. The last thing we need to do is to put this solid layer below the descent layer. And now we can press play and see our results. You can keep playing around with the options for this to further tweak the look and feel of it. One of the things that the book recommends is opening up the descent layer and changing the starting time for this animation by clicking on the first keyframe for the end range selector and moving it over to start at 1 second. This will give it a little bit of time to read it before it starts animating. Once this is done, we can go to File, and let's save our project. Do make sure you got your name on it. And then we can go back to File and add this to our render queue. Make sure you keep it at best high quality settings. Click on the Output to know where you're saving it to, in my case the desktop. And then finally click Render to create your movie. Upload this final movie file as well as your After Effects file to the class page.